So my name is Anna Marie Smith, and I'm the Director of Advising at A-List Education, and we're very excited to have with us tonight Alex Bates from Lafayette College. And I will go ahead and pass it over to him soon. Basically, we like to set up these webinars with our clients who are really interested in the students and families that are really interested in certain schools and universities, so that you can get a bit of an insider view of some schools and figure out if it's a school that you want to visit, or maybe ask some questions to an admission counselor or representative who might be able to answer questions about what they're looking for in applications, or what type of student would be a match there, or anything about their programs. So I'm going to go ahead and pass on the hosting role to Alex, and we'll probably chat for a little while, and then at the end we'll take a moment to have a time for questions if anyone has any. So I'll pass this over right now.
Great. Well, thank you very much for that, Anna Marie.
Hi, yes, it's working.
Hi, how are you? Good evening, everyone, and thanks for being with me. My name is Alex Bates, and I work at Lafayette College, but I'm regionally based here in New York City. So if you hear some honking from my window, apologies for that. Thanks again for taking the time this evening to learn a little bit about Lafayette. I have just a few points, I think, of distinction that hopefully will tell you a little bit more about the college, what kind of a place we are, and as Anna Marie mentioned, the types of students that we're looking for, and the types of students that really thrive on our campus. So I'll take just a few minutes for that to give sort of some basic information on the college, and then hopefully leave a lot of time for question and answer.
Regional, I think, admissions officer because he's based in New York City. He can't hear us, right?
I can hear you. I can't see you, but if you want to just hit mute on your at the bottom of your little window on Zoom, that should probably hopefully mute things. And if you have a question, please unmute and do chime in. But again, my name is Alex Bates, and I work at Lafayette College. Perhaps the first thing to start with when talking about Lafayette is location. We are in a small city of about 30,000 residents. So by New York standards, it's really more like a big block in terms of population. Easton is a small city of 30,000 and a really quaint and vibrant small city that I think our college benefits a great deal from in terms of our location. Our campus is up on a hill, a steep hilltop, a beautiful suburban area of the city of Easton, just about a 5 to 10 minute walk down the hill to get to downtown Easton. And then it's about a 15-minute walk back up the hill. It is pretty sizable. And the downtown area is where students do a lot of community service, where they might go to a restaurant, especially if parents are in town visiting. That's also where they would catch the bus. Most of our students from New York City take the bus back and forth when they do go. And our proximity to larger cities is really something that's very different about Lafayette. I don't know any of you, and I can't see any of you, and so I'm not sure how many of you have visited other liberal arts colleges or looking at other sort of small liberal arts colleges like us with sort of small classes and academic flexibility and all those things that you see at a liberal arts college. But one thing that's very different about us is our proximity to larger cities. We are 70 miles west of Manhattan and 60 miles north of Philadelphia, an hour and a half from each of those places. That is very distinctive in comparison to a lot of our peer schools. I don't tend to use the word unique all that often. I think it's a little bit overplayed by college admissions officers, but distinctive is a word that I use quite a bit. And honestly, to be an hour and a half from Manhattan and from Philadelphia is something that is extremely distinctive about Lafayette. Most of our peer institutions with small classes and academic flexibility tend to be 3 or 4 or 5 hours from a major metropolitan area, whereas we are just an hour and a half from the city. So if you are interested in Lafayette, we'd love to get to know you. And certainly opportunities like this are great, but there's really no substitute for visiting campus, and unlike most of our peer schools, that's a really easy thing for anyone from the New York City environment to do. And I'm happy to talk in a moment about sort of visiting campus opportunities and all that if it's helpful. But again, we are a liberal arts college, which means a lot of things, I think, to a lot of different people. But to us at Lafayette, it means academic flexibility. So we are 2,500 undergraduate students, and we are exclusively undergraduate. Okay, that's very important for you to know. I think that's just a really critical distinguishing factor, especially in comparison to a lot of larger universities with master and PhD students. At Lafayette, we are exclusively undergraduate. Okay, so everybody is going for a Bachelor of Arts or Bachelor of Science degree. We have no PhD or master's students. So the focus is entirely on the undergraduate experience. So you get to know your professors on a really individual level and to develop those personal connections. That's very much of value to our students. At 2,500 students, the average graduating class is about 650 or so, but the classroom is usually about 18 to 20 students. And so getting to know your professors on an individual level, as I said, is really critical to the Lafayette experience. And that's something that I think our students are really looking for when they come to Lafayette. And that's true at a lot of liberal arts colleges. But another thing that's distinctive about us in comparison to liberal arts colleges academically is the breadth of what we offer. You just do not find many schools of our size that offer the academic breadth and diversity that we do. And again, I don't know anything about you, students or parents, what your students are interested in studying, but you just are not going to find many schools of our size that offer what we do academically. The most obvious example of that, I think, is engineering. That's really quite uncommon to be a true liberal arts college, and by that I mean not admitting students to a college of engineering or a college of business, but having real engineering, Bachelor of Science, ABET accredited 4-year programs, not a 3-2 program like many other liberal arts colleges talk about. So engineering and the liberal arts are kind of an uncommon combination, but that's not the only example of our academic breadth. When you talk about things like film and media studies or neuroscience, you will not find schools of our size that offer programs like that, generally speaking. And so we really do pride ourselves on those small classroom engagements and strong faculty relationships that you get at a lot of other small liberal arts colleges, but there's a lot more in the academic breadth and opportunity offered to our students. And that's something that is also pretty distinctive about Lafayette. In terms of campus life, we're a very residential college. So it's great that New York and Philadelphia are so close by, but we are not a place where students often leave on the weekends. Whether you're coming from just across the river in New Jersey, across the country in California, or Angola or Turkey, and our students come from all over the world, everybody comes to live on our residential campus. So you don't really find too many Lafayette students that just go to class and just study and are only thinking about the academic aspect of the college experience. Pretty much all of our students are very involved in campus life, and how they're involved varies a great deal from one student to the next, from religious and cultural groups to political organizations to the arts, which are a big part of campus life. And these days especially, we just completed a brand new arts campus, which is really exciting to us. We have something called the Creative and Performing Arts, or CAPA Scholars Program, which is a grant of up to $7,500 for the student to use in the arts however he or she wanted. So the arts are certainly a big part of campus life, both academically and as extra and co-curricular opportunities, to less serious, less involved things and clubs, like the juggling club. Not to be disparaging to the juggling club, just a little bit less of a time commitment than being involved in, say, the national championship winning Fed Challenge team or the mock trial team or something like that. So quite diverse in terms of how our students are involved in campus life, but the common denominator among Lafayette students is that all of them are involved and those extra and co-curricular engagements are a really critical aspect of the Lafayette experience that complements their academic work. One other thing in terms of campus life that I would be remiss if I didn't mention is school spirit. So we are the smallest Division I school in the United States to field 23 varsity sports. We're also a part of the most played rivalry in the history of American college football, which is really fun to be a part of. It is with Lehigh University. They're just a few miles down the road, about 20 minutes away from us. And I think because of proximity and because of the rivalry, folks tend to associate us with one another quite a bit. And then once they get to visit, they actually understand that we're really quite different places, and how we are different, and which school, if either, is a good fit for you is really totally up to you to sort out. I won't say a disparaging word against them. I will just say that they're very different than us as an institution. And I think once families actually visit, you get a sense of that. I hear that quite a bit from families and from students once they visit it, is that you've got a much stronger sense of how exactly the schools are different from one another. I would just say that we are both very fortunate to have one another, because this sense of school spirit really is quite distinctive about Lafayette. And take it from me, I went to another small liberal arts college with dinner at professors' houses and all of those things that you get at a small liberal arts college. And if you've been to an information session at a small liberal arts college, you've heard all about dinner at professors' houses, and we do that at Lafayette. And I loved my experience where I went as an undergraduate. But school spirit was really not a part of my experience, whereas at Lafayette it's a big deal. It matters a lot, and that's a lot of fun to be a part of. This is the 153rd meeting of that rivalry this fall. The 150th, a couple years ago, we played not at home nor away, but at Yankee Stadium in the Bronx, and that was a pretty special thing to see a sold-out crowd of 48,000 people with alumni who literally came back from all over the world to be a part of that event. It was pretty special to see the Empire State Building lit up in maroon and white. For us was a really cool thing. And it didn't hurt that we won that game 27-7. But it's not about winning. It's about a sense of community and spirit and connection. I think that's something that we do very well at Lafayette. And that's fun, obviously, while you're a student to attend games, but it also means a lot for your life after Lafayette. And I think our alumni network is something that is extremely distinctive about the college that really does set us apart from a lot of our peer schools. I think because we combine the best of a small residential community where you know your professors on an individual level, but more of that rah-rah, go fight, win kind of spirit that you would associate with most larger universities. So our alumni network is extremely powerful. And that makes a great difference for current students when they're looking at internship and professional development opportunities. I think the involvement of our alumni network combined with the structure of our Gateway program makes for really powerful results for students. The Gateway program is designed to be a 4-year program. That's a little bit different than a lot of colleges and universities who work with seniors or juniors and seniors on editing a resume. In Gateway, they want to work with you in your first year at Lafayette. So if you sign up for the Gateway program, you get assigned a career services advisor and maintain that same career services advisor the entire time that you're at Lafayette. And that would be, of course, separate from your academic advisors. So that person knows you well and is able to help you navigate the waters of professional development in whatever industry or industries you're thinking about. So usually the first meeting with a Gateway advisor starts with a conversation about who you are and what your goals are and what you're thinking about studying and majoring in. And then eventually those conversations move forward in a more intentional way to talk about externships, which are short-term job shadowing programs. Everybody could just make sure you're muted. I think someone's got some background noise going on there. So if you could just make sure that you're muted at the bottom of your window, I think that'd be good. So as I was saying, the Gateway program is designed to be a 4-year program, and eventually students start talking with their advisor about externships, which are these short-term job shadowing programs of just a few days or a week, usually with an alumnus or an alumna, getting to see what an industry is really like before you commit your entire summer to an internship. And that exposure and that proactive approach to career services is something that's very different about Lafayette. So a lot of times students go on an externship and it went great. They love it. And they come back to Lafayette and sit down with their career services advisor and say, this was awesome. This was just what I was thinking. And externships lead to internships, lead to job offers all within one company because of the strength of the alumni network at Lafayette. Other times, students come back from an externship and they sit down with their advisor and say, whoa, that was not for me. That was, Law and Order has been lying to me for all these years. It's really not as interesting as I thought it was going to be. And what am I going to do now? Well, you're a first-year student or you're a sophomore. So let's think about what you didn't appreciate about that experience and sort of pivot from there in a different direction that's going to be more appropriate for you. And that's what I mean in terms of the 4-year 4-year career service approach at Lafayette and through the Gateway program that's a little bit distinctive in comparison to a lot of other schools. So that's just sort of a quick glimpse at Lafayette and the type of school that we are. We are exclusively undergraduate and almost entirely residential, a place of great academic breadth and opportunity, and also great connection with other community members, both your peers and faculty, a place where students really have the flexibility to pursue what they're most passionate about. As a liberal arts college, as I said, we don't admit students to a school of this or a college of that. You declare your major at Lafayette at the end of the sophomore year, at the end of the first year for engineers. But we are a place of great academic flexibility and a great deal of spirit and resources and opportunity as well. So that's just a bit about us. I'm going to talk now about the admissions process really quickly as well, and then hopefully we can open it up for question and answer. In terms of the admissions process, we are a highly selective school, and we have a holistic application review process, which I can't see any of you, but if you've been to other college information sessions, you're probably rolling your eyes when I said holistic application review, because you've probably heard that other places. Here at Lafayette, it really means that we are trying to get to know the whole student and the whole person as much as we can. With that said, it does start with the transcript, okay? So the way that you've performed academically in high school and the context of your school is really critical in terms of how we assess a student's academic ability. So the rigor of your curriculum is absolutely huge for us, and obviously also the grades that you've been awarded in that curriculum. Standardized test scores are a part of our process for sure. We require the SAT or the ACT. We're not a test optional school. The middle half of admitted students is on all the websites, and you can pretty easily find it there. I would just caution you from putting all of your stock in those numbers one way or the other. By that I mean there are a lot of students from sort of, here's our 25th percentile, here's our 75th percentile. There are a lot of students above our 75th percentile who assume that they're getting into Lafayette. And they look at our numbers and say, oh, I'm totally getting into Lafayette. Now, where do I actually want to go to college? And a lot of those students are surprised this time of year because Lafayette is awesome. It's amazing. And we are not a place to be taken for granted, quite honestly. Whereas I think a lot of other students who are below the 25th percentile rule themselves out of our pool, even though they're really strong students taking the most challenging curriculum at their school, who are involved outside the classroom and are excited about community and the other things that we care about at Lafayette. And I think both of those students make a mistake. So the test scores matter. They are important, no doubt. But they're not the end-all be-all of how we assess a student's academic ability, to say nothing of what kind of a roommate you're going to be or how you're going to contribute to life at Lafayette outside of the classroom. So activities are something that matter a great deal to us, letters of recommendation and essays. I could talk at you for hours about those things, and I know you'd love nothing more on a pretty sunny evening here in New York to hear me lecture you about essays and letters of rec. Suffice it to say, they matter. They're really important as we try to get to know each individual applicant as a potential member of our community on College Hill. One other thing in terms of the application process, we're a Common App school exclusively. We have early decision, which is a binding agreement. We do not offer early action. So if you apply early decision and you're admitted, you are coming, end of story. So it's certainly a big commitment. We also offer regular decision. And then one final thing about the application before we open it up to Q&A. I mentioned before that Lafayette and many schools like us don't want to be taken for granted, and I think there are a lot of really great high achieving students out there that we get excited about who have not helped us to understand that they're excited about us, because in admissions we make a lot of assumptions. We make an assumption about your ability to succeed in our classroom based on your grades and test scores and curriculum. We make an assumption about how active you'll be in clubs and activities based on what you've done before. We also make assumptions about who is the most excited about us, who's going to get a letter of admission from Lafayette and going to go crazy about it. And certainly we want students who are very high achieving that we can get excited about. But some of those students, I think, who are rock stars academically and president of this and first chair of that and captain of the other, who have not enabled us to feel the love and feel that excitement, do themselves a disservice. So we really want to know if Lafayette is on your list and you're interested, you've got to come visit us. I mean, we're an hour and a half away from New York City, which is a great benefit, I think, but also a bit of a challenge for some students who haven't made the trip out to see us. Visiting campuses is very important for you to get a sense of that place, but it also may be important to do because colleges might be keeping track of that. And it's not to say that you need to visit 12 times or that, we admit weaker students who have demonstrated a lot of interest in us. This sort of demonstrated interest thing does never supersede a transcript. But we want students who want to be at Lafayette. And so we do strongly recommend the interview. It's not required, but it is an opportunity for us to get to know students beyond sort of SAT, GPA, to know a little bit more of what makes you tick and why and how Lafayette might be a fit for you. So those are opportunities that we really work hard to make available, as we do in general with the campus visit. We are open for tours 5 different times a day on weekdays, as well as information sessions, and we're open for tours and information sessions most Saturdays. You want to confirm it on the visits page and register for that, but we're open and we're available. And so if students haven't come through in the long period of the junior winter, junior spring, summer, fall, it doesn't mean that you can't be admitted, but it does mean that it presents some challenge to the first reader of that application who is presenting the student to his or her colleagues and trying to get excited about that student when the student really hasn't shown us the love and the excitement. So hopefully that's helpful in a more general kind of way, not just about Lafayette. And I think with that, perhaps we could open it up to questions if that makes sense. Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely. I had a few questions that were emailed to me ahead of time, so maybe I'll just start with those. And if anyone does have questions, feel free to speak up. We're happy to make this more of a conversation. So could you give a little bit of the breakdown? You were talking about how there's academic flexibility because it's a liberal arts school, but is it pretty even between engineering, arts, sciences, or do you find that it's weighted in a certain direction?
Sure. So we have 4 divisions at Lafayette, and they are not separate colleges, but 4 academic divisions: engineering, the natural sciences, the social sciences, and the humanities. And it's a relatively even distribution. Engineers are about 24% of our student body. Natural scientists are less than 30, about 28% or so, and that remaining 47-ish percent, whatever it is pretty evenly split between the humanities and social sciences. Our largest individual majors right now are economics, government and law, psychology, international affairs, biology, and mechanical engineering. The fastest growing major is film and media studies. So it really is a pretty wide range in terms of the different academic programs that we offer, and quite well balanced.
Great, okay. And after graduation, what are the paths that many of your students take?
It really depends on the student. The majority of our students are heading directly to full-time employment. It's about 72%, so certainly a strong majority, but still a significant minority that are going to graduate school, medical school, law school directly after Lafayette. 95% of our students are either in full-time employment, graduate schools, fellowships, or something of the like within 6 months of graduating from Lafayette, 95%. And so we're really proud of that. And given the nature of the Gateway program and the size of the graduating class as a proportion of the resources that we have available, it really is quite individualized advising that students get to help them find what first step after Lafayette is going to be most beneficial to them.
Gotcha. And the geographic breakdown, how many students are you having from the New York region?
So in terms of enrolled students, I don't have an exact percentage. In terms of the applicants from the 5 boroughs, it's been typically about 10% of the applicant pool in the last few years, which is significant, no doubt. The enrolling student percentage would be lower than that by a bit, but given our proximity to the city and also the vastness of New York and just how many great schools and great students of all different backgrounds and interests there are here. That's why I'm here. And my colleagues and I work really hard to make sure that New York is as well represented as it can be.
Great. Do you have events in the city as well?
We don't typically do a lot. We do some for accepted students at the home of alumni. In terms of the off-campus events, we really want folks to get to campus. And so we do, we attend a lot of college fairs and we go visit a lot of high schools in the fall. And we try to be at as many as we can. Obviously, it depends on what school you go to, whether we'll be coming to yours and all that. But being as close as we are to the city, we really do try to push the on-campus visit first and foremost, because that really is the best way to get a sense of whether or not it's going to be a fit for you. Certainly, all the data and all the college matchmaking sites and conversations with counselors and others are helpful, but there's no substitute for getting on campus.
Many of our students are really interested in study abroad. Could you touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, thanks for bringing it up. Sorry I neglected that. Most of our students will study abroad at some point at Lafayette. Over 50% do. You could go for as much as a full year. More common to go for 1 semester, but we also have short-term programs of 3 to 4 weeks in the January interim break or in the summertime, which are also, I think, somewhat distinctive. Each of these is good for 1 course credit in 1 Lafayette department, but not restrictive only to students majoring in that department. So, as a liberal arts college, you can come to Lafayette and study, chemical engineering. It's a liberal arts college. You're going to take a humanities class, but you could satisfy that humanities requirement with the art department's trip to Italy studying Renaissance art for 3 weeks in January, whereas your roommate could be an international affairs major. He or she needs to take a lab science course at some point, but he or she could do that with the geology and environmental geoscience department trip to the Galapagos Islands, studying volcanoes and seismic activity, which is 3 weeks in January in the Galapagos Islands, which is better than being back here in the city for the entirety of the January break. And so those short-term study abroad programs are a really nice opportunity, either in addition to the full semester abroad or in lieu of that longer term abroad. But we really want study abroad to be a reality for all of our students, whether they're engineers or pre-med or Division I athletes or whatever. So that's why we really work hard to make those opportunities available as widely as we can.
Just want to pause in case anyone else has a question. You're welcome to speak up. I don't need to ask all of them.
Yeah, I have a question. First of all, thank you so much for doing this webinar.
Sure. Thank you.
My pleasure. So my question is, I have a couple. Do you have a core curriculum in your arts and sciences division?
So we have a common course of study that all students must satisfy. So whether you're a mechanical engineer or a film and media studies major, all students will satisfy the common course of study. I think of it as somewhat of a balance. It is not a core where everyone will take this specific class and then that specific class, nor is it a totally open curriculum where if you want to be a scientist, you can be totally ignorant of the humanities or vice versa. So I really do think it's a balance. It's not about sort of specific classes so much as it is satisfying aspects of the common course of study, which would include the breadth and foundation requirements. So as I mentioned, all students will take a humanities, all students will take a social science and a natural science class. All students will take 4 writing courses. Writing is a central part of the common course of study. One of those will be your FYS, your first year seminar. All students take a first year seminar. Usually we offer about 30 different topical seminars each year, so it's quite wide ranging in terms of being more science oriented, being more humanities, social sciences, whatever. But the FYS is a part of the common course of study for everyone. All students prove a basic proficiency in a foreign language. If you did not test out of that, that would be 2 classes at the lowest level that we offer at Lafayette. So again, a basic proficiency, not an intermediate proficiency. Global and multicultural courses, 2 of those. There are tons of classes in all the divisions that would satisfy that. So, you know, something like international pandemics might be a lab science course and also a global and multicultural course. Let's see, that's about it that I can think of for the common course of study. So it sounds like a lot when I list it all off, but it really is when you remember that you're taking these things over time, that there are many courses that satisfy more than one requirement of the common course of study. It really is pretty flexible.
Great, thanks. And then just going back to the Gateway program, it sounds terrific. Is it that students choose to do that? Do all students at Lafayette do it? You have to be proactive. I'm sorry, I feel like I missed something in the beginning.
Sure, no problem. So Gateway is optional. It's not required. And so it is totally up to the student. We really, really push them to sign up. There's really no reason not to. It's not as if it sort of has any additional cost or anything like that. There's really no reason not to, other than just, you know, I'm having fun at college, I'm busy. No, I don't want to worry about that. Well, that's fine. But we really like for you to get involved in Gateway. So we do strongly encourage all students to get involved, but it is optional. Great.
And finally, so, you know, at 2,500 being the smallest D1 school, how does being a D1 school impact, I guess, your identity as a small liberal arts college? I mean, my son is really interested in school spirit, so I think he would really like the fact that he has the access to the professors, but also has that rah-rah feel. I guess what percentage of your students play a sport, and how to, you know, typically one thinks of small D3 schools as focusing on academics as well as sports if you are playing a sport, whereas you think of D1 schools as it's winning, less so about the academics. So sorry, I'm not really framing a question in a good way.
Okay. That's okay, I got it. So first off, just a point of clarification, we are the smallest Division I school in the country to field 23 varsity sports. So that's the little fine print there at the bottom. It's, you know, Not that it matters a great deal, but I just needed to clarify that because there's always some Davidson alumnus who says, wait a second, we're the smallest. It's like, yes, you are, but you don't have 23 varsity sports. So I just needed to clarify that.
Thank you.
Just for the lawyer, any lawyers in the room. And in terms of, the campus culture and how it plays out, that's a great question. First off, there was one specific thing I think you asked maybe about the percentage of students who are varsity athletes, and that's one to answer. That's about 21% of our students. So certainly a significant percentage of students are varsity athletes, but it's not as if they're a majority. The majority of students are involved with sports. So when you add varsity and club and intramural and all the different opportunities, a lot of our students really do want to be active and really do want to play, even though certainly for most of them, the Division I commitment is going to be probably more than what they're looking for. But to answer your question about sort of culture and how it plays out, if it were one or the other, a Division III school that focuses on the academics and if you play a sport, then that's a part of your experience, or Division I school where the academics aren't as well emphasized, I think was what you were sort of saying. We're far more towards the former. I mean, there's no question. And it's cool to say, hey, we're the smallest school that 23 sports and most played rivalry, not the oldest rivalry, most played rivalry in American football history. But when you get to campus, you see it's much more of a small college where professors know you. And honestly, anyone who comes to Lafayette that thinks they're just going to play, it's a rude awakening in a class of 15 students where there is no sort of easy major and there is no sort of separate campus where all the athletes are. And they know that. And that's why students come to a place like Lafayette.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Sure. Great questions.
I have another question that was emailed to me that I wanted to ask about recommendations. So how many recommendations is too many? And if you have several different academic teachers and then maybe electives that you're really interested in, is it okay to submit 4? Or what kind of advice would you give on that? So
like the answer to any question about sort of admissions is it depends. And so I would encourage you to ask every school, the same question, because you will get varied answers. For us at Lafayette, we require a letter from a counselor and 1 letter from a teacher in a core academic subject area. Many of our applicants will submit more than 1, and that's fine. We're going to read everything that you send. I would say in total, more than 3 letters of recommendation, generally speaking, is not going to really have a great deal of value add. If there's specific circumstances, then that's fine, but it really does slow down the reading process and not add much in terms of perspectives when we've got 5 letters of recommendation to read. I really do believe that. So that's my perspective. Again, it depends. Ask other schools, but a teacher or 2 that really know you well is what we're looking for. Great.
And as far as choosing courses, I think some of our students are even choosing courses for next year, trying to decide if they want to take an AP or an all honors route, but they're really weaker in math. Is it better to take the stronger class and know you're going to make a B, or take a regular class in one subject and know you're going to be more likely to make an A?
Yep. So it depends. And I think, again, I can speak for Lafayette. I think you really need to go with your gut on this one, and not your gut if you're kind of tired sitting on the couch and you're like, whatever, let's just take the regular level. But after thoughtful consideration and talking with your counselor, if you really feel that, the AP Calc, first of all, you're interested in the social sciences and humanities, and the AP Calc class is going to bring you down and force you to not be engaged outside the classroom and make you, less successful overall, you really shouldn't be in that class. Now, might that rule you out in certain applicant pools? Yeah, it might. I mean, highly selective college admissions, some of these places you can take every AP offered, get straight A's, and it's still not happening because it's just a basic supply and demand thing. With us at Lafayette, I think we're really fortunate that we're able to get to know students on an individual level and also know who they are and what their strengths are. So if you are interested in engineering, you should probably be taking calculus and physics. AP English, certainly if that's what you want, that's awesome. And if you want to double major in mechanical engineering and literature, Lafayette's a great place to do that. But some of our students, are a little bit more focused, and they know math science is for them, or they know humanities is for them, and they will maybe stick with honors or maybe even regular in that other area. And that's fine. In general, the question is, I think often, well, should I get the B in the AP or should I get an A in regular? Well, you should get an A in AP. And I know that isn't what folks want to hear, but in highly selective pools, that really is, I think, that is the most honest and direct answer. But at the same time, and more importantly, you need to be doing what's a good fit for you. And then the colleges you apply to should take shape after and around those decisions that you've made. Again, not sitting on the couch like, oh man, I don't want to do that. But after a lot of consideration and talking with your counselor about what is going to both push you, but allow you to be active outside the classroom and find success academically. It's a balancing act, basically. I don't know. Is that helpful?
Yeah, I think absolutely. All right. I want to give time in case anyone else has another question they want to ask. Is there anybody else? Well, I'll ask the final question of just, could you give some qualities of what you think makes an ideal student at Lafayette? What student's going to really thrive there?
I think a student who really does want that balance that I mentioned, certainly a bright kid, who's academically talented and cares about learning, but one who also wants to be active outside the classroom, and someone who cares about community, and I think really wants to connect with others. I hear a lot, especially from some of our kids from New York City, that they just can't believe how nice everyone is. And again, I live in the city, so I'm not, throwing stones here, but generally when you get on the subway, you don't just say hi to people that you don't know. That's not necessarily something that happens. On our campus, it does. And I think it's a bit of an adjustment for New York kids at the beginning sometimes, but that's a reason they come to Lafayette, is to get that really community-oriented experience where students care about one another and they care about what they're doing, both in the classroom and outside of it, and they really are invested in each other and the project or the community service program or the club sport or whatever it is. They really do care about one another, and I think that really does show when you come to campus. And so I hope you will, if Lafayette is of interest to you, and if not, then that's perfectly fine. But if it is, as I said before, we've got to connect with you because our proximity to New York just means that, we do have a lot of folks coming from the city, and we would love to connect and kind of get to know you beyond sort of the more objective and basic superficial aspects of the application.
Great. All right. Well, thank you so much for taking your time to chat with us. And
do you mind if I ask one more question?
Sure. Go for it.
Sorry. So visiting the campus, I assume there's a major advantage to visiting when the kids are there. Do you also, unfortunately, my son plays baseball and weekends they have games, so it's sort of difficult to do it. But I assume you also have tours and info sessions in the summertime as well.
Tons. Yeah. Yep. So we have pretty much the same schedule of 5 different tour times a day and open on Saturday also throughout the summer. So there's a couple that we don't. I think we get Memorial Day off and I think we get the 4th of July, but hopefully, for the most part, we're open. And
do you have kids on campus over the summer?
Yep, we do. Not many, but there are some students doing research. There are, of course, the students who give those tours, and then a couple other students. It's definitely quiet, and yes, it is ideal, I think, for a student to come in the spring or the fall when you can see it in full swing, but that's just not a reality for many students, and so we have a ton of visitors in the summer, and I would recommend the interview again. I think a lot of students say, oh, well, I'll do my tour and then I'll come back in the fall for the interview. And that's fine, and many do, but a lot of folks, they have no concept of just how busy the senior fall is going to be with retaking the SAT and then baseball, fall ball and all this stuff and preparing your applications, you won't come back and you won't do the interview. And so, if you have no idea about Lafayette, then maybe don't sign up for the interview. But if you've done a little bit of research online and you're liking what you're hearing and it's looking like a place you're probably going to apply to, then I would sign up for the interview at the same time that you do that tour, because it's just nice to get it taken care of. And it's really just a laid back conversation. Most of them are with Lafayette seniors. So senior interviewers do most of our interviews, which is great. So you don't have to deal with those admissions people, which is great. It's just a conversation about sort of you and what you're interested in and a chance to ask more specific individual questions about Lafayette.
Great. So the interviews are all on campus. You don't do regional interviews.
We try to provide that. That is for applicants only. So you have to already apply, which really brings our window down quite a bit from whenever we start assigning those with our alumni representatives to the date by which we need to stop, because we have to finalize decisions. So that might be possible, and we'll do our best. Students generally email me, and I try to coordinate that. And we do our best to cover those. But again, it can be challenging as my colleagues and I are actually reading the applications. The alumni volunteers have their own jobs and lives, and having children, and it's all just things get lost in the wash sometimes with that. So we will do our best. But that's why I really do try to proactively encourage students to take care of the interview when they're on campus, if possible. And if not, then that's perfectly fine.
And what's the window of dates for the on-campus interview?
So we started in March for juniors, and we do them all through the spring, all through the summer, all through the fall, and through part of January, actually. Actually a couple days past the application deadline, which is great. Again, we're trying to be as available as we can, but some folks that sign up last minute are bummed because the January interviews tend to book up around Christmas, just because the demand is high. Sure. And so I would, again, just encourage folks to be proactive if you're interested.
All right, any other questions? Okay, well, thank you so much. Have a great evening. We really appreciate your time.
Thanks, folks. Yeah, indeed. And I appreciate all of your time on a nice, if slightly brisk evening here in the city. And if I can be of help, please do shoot me an email. Maybe Anna Marie, you could share my email address. If not, I'm also on our website under the Meet the Staff page. You can see me there. And please do stay in touch if I can be of help.
Sure. If anyone would like contact info, just let me know and I'm happy to pass it along.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, folks. Have a good evening.
Thanks. Bye.